Echoes of the End is a AA game from the developers Myrkur Games, and in fact, it's the first game from the team. Deep Silver were nice enough to give me the game to test out, and I've come away with a ton of thoughts about it. This game has a lot going for it, but it's also incredibly flawed in many ways. It's not a bad game by any stretch, but I feel to a certain degree, you can tell it's their first title. But today, we'll be talking about the many elements of the game, and try to help you decide if this game is worth it. So Echoes of the End is a third-person action-adventure game, so no, it's not fully open world, and no, it's not an RPG. It's a lot more similarly structured to, say, an Uncharted game, and within the game you'll be dealing with your fair share of puzzles, combat encounters, and boss fights. I found the puzzles in the game to be somewhat difficult at times, but most of them can be solved pretty simply. The game's main gimmick is the magic you have. You'll be using this to transform the world around you. You'll be moving boxes to new locations, freezing things in place, and more. It's quite simple once you get the hang of it, and I think it can be a bit repetitive. But that being said, I think it works enough for puzzle segments to be fun. But I do dislike that there's this really annoying ask for help prompt the second you spend more than 15 seconds on a puzzle. I felt like I was being babied when it kept popping up. And I feel it would really benefit from being a toggle in the menu. I say this because I looked for a way to turn it off and at least I couldn't find a way to. You'll find yourself parkouring and platforming a fair bit in this game as well. Unfortunately, the movement in this game feels really floaty. It's not game ruining, but I notice it a lot, especially with some animations at times where you literally float across the ground and also sliding down mud looks really silly. But aside from the floaty nature, I actually don't mind the movement. You can roll in combat, jump around a fair bit in the levels, and explore a fair bit too. I will say I wish the boundaries were made a little bit clearer. Too many times I try to explore and plunge to my death, but overall the movement's not the worst thing in the world, it's just a bit floaty. The best thing about exploring, however, is purely the visuals. I find this game absolutely stunning. And honestly, not that many games look quite as good at this one at times, which I think is pretty impressive from such a small studio. Don't get me wrong though, there's a couple rough bits, plenty of blurry textures, and sometimes the distant landscapes look laughable. But for the most part, it looks fantastic, and I was really pleased when playing with the visuals. It's just a shame that this came at such a great cost with performance because this game is an unoptimized stutterfest and performs awfully. I play on PC and I have a fairly decent rig, and I still had to use DLSS to make the game smooth and playable, and as far as I'm considered, if you can't play a game without DLSS, then it's borderline unplayable, because DLSS shouldn't be mandatory, it should be a last resort. But to credit the devs, they seem to be making a fair few patches for the game, so hopefully this will be resolved soon. Unfortunately, there's a fair amount of bugs too, and most of them are pretty funny, nothing too ridiculous, but it's a little immersion breaking. But I want to get to the actual meat of the game here, the combat. Unfortunately, it's also not perfect. But I don't think it's awful either. I think overall it's fun, attacks feel weighty, and it reminds me of another AA game I played a while back called Greedfall. Unfortunately, combat was one of the weaker points in that game too. Side note by the way, if you haven't played Greedfall, give it a go, it's pretty good. They explained the parry mechanic in this game to me, and yet I still just avoid it at all costs. It's straight up janky and leaves me way too open to enemy attacks. But luckily the dodge and roll are much better to get out of the way of damage, and it's typically how I try to avoid damage in the game. Blocking also feels just a bit too inconsistent. Luckily, I like the swordplay and magic setup. You can use the environment around you to cause damage, and use magic on the enemies, which always feels really satisfying. I also like that the game's not a pushover. It can be pretty difficult at times. I genuinely at times find myself struggling, which is good. It's nice to play a game with some challenge, and the gore is super cool as well. And these finishing moves, although a little too long, and leaving you open to attacks, look really cool. Now, I haven't fully beat the story yet, but I can say so far it's fine. I feel like I've been thrown halfway into the campaign and I don't really understand much. So many things are happening and I just understand so little. I'm hoping by the time the story wraps up, everything will be explained. But I'm a good ways into the game now and I'm still just a little too lost to be comfortable. Also, the protagonist is insufferable. They are just such an asshole to everyone and I have no clue why. Well, I do. It's daddy issues.
It's not about the beat, it's about you not paying attention. You need to stop playing around and open your eyes, because I have to be responsible for you, Core.
Shouldn't we try to figure out why the dust that are here?
I imagine something bigger drove them out of the hills. Anyways, the wards are our priority.
But they're a threat to the wards, right?
Don't be stupid.
I do like that the game has given us some dialogue options. It's not necessary for a game like this, but it does give us some sense of choice in the game. So I think whether this game is for you will really depend on, well, you. If you can accept the shortcomings of the game, there's some fun to be had here. I can totally see a skeleton of a great game here, but I don't think so far it's come together fantastically. But I am enjoying my time with the game at the same time. It's not bad, it's just not where I'd want it to be. As I said earlier, it's fun but flawed, and it applies to pretty much every mechanic in the game. Combat, fun but flawed. Exploration, fun but flawed. Movement, story, characters, fun but flawed. I will say though, I'll always support games like this. It's pretty creative and I can see that love and care did go into the game. And I'd have supported this game so much more if it didn't immediately come with performance issues. But I do genuinely think that the dev team behind this game have some real potential, and there are far worse starting points than this game. So while I'm not totally positive on this game, I can see the early beginnings of what could potentially one day be great. For me right now, this game is sitting around a 6 out of 10. Which I think for your first attempt at a game is not bad. But I think if the performance and bugs were fixed, I'd be more confident to even nudge it up to a 6.5 and maybe a 7. The game itself isn't bad, and if they fix a couple of the shortcomings, they could have something really cool here. All in all, I think this game can be worth it for you, but I wouldn't rush out to buy it. It's not bad at all, but it just has a lot of shortcomings. But I do see some potential with this game, and the developers have done a decent job. There's still just a ways to go. So I hope in the future, with their next game maybe, or maybe even an update to this one, they can improve on some of these things, and I'll think they'll be well on their ways to making some great games. That's all for this video though, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.